Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Shad, and today I'm here with a video for the first time in 2 months. 2 whole months. I wanted to come back with a bit of a more lengthy video because of course I have been gone for a very long time, and I figured you guys are owed at least that. There's been a lot of the season I haven't covered, and that is because of work and school and personal stuff, whatever. Anyway, in today's video, you saw the title. It is going to be about highlighting at least one good thing about each team in the league. 30 teams, 30 bullet points. I'm not going to spend way too much time on the intro because we've got a lot of video to cover, so let's get right into it. Since we are going in alphabetical order, we are going to be starting with the Atlanta Hawks. And the one good thing that I saw from this season, which has been a fairly mid/below average season for the Hawks, trading for Saddiq Bey and the play of AJ Griffin. Now, these are two things that might seem very small in the grand scheme of things, but when looking at, the brighter spots for the Atlanta Hawks, like Trae Young has been very up and down. The rest of the team has kind of just been mid. Those are two things that I like. And AJ Griffin specifically, I'm really impressed with him. Next up is the Boston Celtics, and for this one, I'm definitely going with Al Horford. No other person deserves my attention from this team at this moment. Al Horford has been freaking incredible, especially with Robert Williams being out for a large chunk of the season dealing with injury again. Al Horford has had to slot into that center role as well as the power forward role at times, and he's handled the transition very seamlessly, and you can see it in the way that he's shooting 46% from three on a healthy amount of attempts. He's playing really good lockdown defense in the interior. He's still a very good pick and roll defender. Al Horford has been incredible for the Boston Celtics. Next up is the Brooklyn Nets, and I really want to give their credit to the front office for finally moving on. It's very tempting to want to hold on to two very high-level talents such as Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving, but because of a lot of things that came with it and the relationship between the front office and the coaching staff and your superstars, and unfortunately the Ben Simmons situation as well, they had to move on, and they finally pulled the trigger. And I'm really happy about it because now we're seeing Mikal Bridges turn into a completely new player, and I love it. Next up is the Charlotte Hornets, in a season where we weren't really expecting much. We were expecting them to tank for a pretty high draft pick, but a couple of the things I saw, honestly, were Nick Richards and Mark Williams. It looks like that's going to be the center core for this team if they don't end up with the #1 pick. Both of these guys in their minutes have pretty much put up damn near identical stats. You'll see them on the screen now, but both bigs that just kind of fill their role, and they're looking like bright spots for this very young roster. The Chicago Bulls have been very disappointing this season, but one of the things that I have seen is the turn up of Zach LaVine over the past 2 months or so. It's a struggle for them, but Zach LaVine has been pretty damn good in this really large recent stretch. So shout out to him, giving him some credit. The Cleveland Cavaliers. Now, aside from them having the best defense in the NBA for a large chunk of the season, I want to give my attention to Isaac Okoro and my flowers to Isaac Okoro. Dre, shout out to you. I know if you're seeing this video, if you're seeing this part, this one was definitely for you. Since January, Isaac Okoro has been a 40-point three-point shooter. This is someone who's been sub 30% from beyond the line for his entire career. He's made a flip on pretty healthy attempts too. I want to say it's about at least 2.5 attempts per game, and he's looking pretty solid. The defense is obviously still there. He's a threat out in transition. He's becoming a true 3-and-D wing, and that is something that the Cavaliers have been desperately needing because they've been needing to fill that wing spot. They need a wing defender. They need a wing scorer. They need something in that position. Hopefully Isaac Okoro can continue this and become that guy for them. The Dallas Mavericks, aside from the biggest thing of trading for Kyrie Irving, which honestly has not been the biggest positive, not because of off the court stuff, but because on the court, surprisingly, the things just haven't gone well for the Mavericks. But one of the things that has gone, I think, a slightly bit better toward the latter half of the season is Jaden Hardy's minutes and his play. And he's been really, really excelling in the minutes that he's been given by Jason Kidd. Finally, this is someone who should have been playing, I think, since the start of the season. And you waste so much potential development sitting your young guys who have so much raw talent on the end of the bench. Jaden Hardy is one of those examples. He came out, showed out in his minutes right now, doing phenomenal. Shout out to you. And now we reach the hometown Denver Nuggets. And for this one, I kind of alluded to it with my last video. I did an I apologize MPJ video. He's my bright spot for the Nuggets right now in a season where they are the #1 seed and playing really well. MPJ has taken the leap on both sides of the floor. Normally, we know MPJ is a catch and shoot guy from the wing, from the corner, wherever it is, just someone who caught the ball and his only goal was to shoot. Now he's putting the ball on the floor. Now he's attacking the rim aggressively. Now he's playing more defense on ball, off ball. Now he's protecting the rim just a little bit more than what he was, but it's still enough of a development to notice. And for that, I'm going to give him my flowers for the Nuggets. If you want the full breakdown on MPJ's play this season, check out that last video. Yeah, and this is where we get interesting. So the Detroit Pistons obviously tanking for a pretty big hit in the draft because Cade Cunningham went down very early in the season and kind of derailed anything that they were kind of planning on this season. So the bright spots that I want to give are to the draft pick that they're going to have that I think is going to add a lot to this young core who has a lot of talent that just needs to be utilized really well. And then speaking of that young talent, Killian Hayes and James Wiseman flashes have been honestly pretty enjoyable to watch. James Wiseman obviously dealing with the drama that was being bad for the Warriors in their system, and Killian Hayes trying to fight the worst player in the league allegations, which he has successfully beaten. So shout out to you two. Let's move on to the next team. The Golden State Warriors. It hurts me to say something good about this team because obviously, they knocked us out of the playoffs last season, and there's a chance that we might meet them again this postseason. So, with that being said, the flowers that I want to give are just to the entire team as a whole for staying afloat. Now, this is a well-known storyline from the season that the Warriors are the absolute worst road team in the NBA right now. Hilarious, because if you look at their home record, I believe right now they're 30-7 at home. So if they played normal on the road and not like the worst team in the league, they'd be pretty high in the standings right now. And for that, I'm going to give them their flowers because they are still firmly in the playoff hunt and they are still firmly ready to make some noise. Despite that road record, they look like a threat to some teams. The Houston Rockets, I want to give this to Jabari Smith Jr. because he is on my fantasy team and he was on that fantasy team for a couple times this season. He got over the rookie wall. It was a brutal, very brutal rookie wall for Jabari Smith. And honestly, I'm just really glad he shot himself out of it. His confidence didn't seem like it wavered. He wasn't taking less shots. He was still jacking them up. And honestly, I'm really proud of that. I think that young core of Jalen Green and Tari Eason, Jabari Smith, Alperen Sengun, and whoever they draft in this draft, if they end up getting number 1 or the number 2 or the number 3, it's going to be a really good addition to this already very impressive young core. The Los Angeles Clippers, Paul George looks like he's not going to come back for the season. And honestly, they were looking like a pretty average team with Kawhi and Paul George there too, because there was a lot of different rotations and injury management and stuff like that. But now with Paul George being hurt and Kawhi just suffering a facial contusion, aren't really that many bright spots other than like the times that Kawhi was playing, he looked like old Kawhi. He took on more of a point forward role, turning into his old man self, if you will, just like tactical play, point forward play, as I just said, that sort of thing. So Kawhi gets my flowers for the Clippers. The Los Angeles Lakers, one of the biggest stories of the season, as they are every season because they are the Lakers. The front office made some shit happen at the trade deadline, and that was something that they desperately needed to happen because their team was looking very bad and they were fighting for a spot out of the play-in. Now they are in the play-in. Now they're I think there's a 3-way tie or a 2-way tie between 7, 8, 9 and 7, 8, whoever it is. There's a lot going on down in the play-in, and the Lakers have placed themselves in that because of the trades that they made. So shout out to the front office for getting some shit done. The Memphis Grizzlies, Ja Morant. We don't have to talk about the Ja Morant situation. There's really nothing to talk about anymore. Jaren Jackson Jr. is going to be getting my flowers for the Grizzlies. His DPOY campaign has been phenomenal. When he came back from injury, he kind of just bursted onto the scene with stellar defensive play after stellar defensive play and incredible defender, shooting amazing splits at 50, 33, and 78. He's having a pretty good year. His rebounding percentage is the highest it's ever been for a full season. He's looking pretty damn good, and he's looking improved, and I appreciate that. So shout out to you, Jaren Jackson Jr. The Miami Heat have been winning games with a very suspect roster and a lot of injuries. There were a lot of undrafted players, a lot of no-name players, shout out Drew Smith, that were playing big minutes for the Miami Heat during the season. And somehow they have managed to stay in the playoff run because of Jimmy Butler, which is the second half of the flowers that I want to give. His postseason ramp up every season is pretty fun to look at, and he's starting it right now. He started a couple games ago after the All-Star break or whatever. But yeah, it's been a spectacle to watch Jimmy Buckets take over and hopefully head into the postseason with all that momentum. So shout out to you two, the whole team as a whole, and Jimmy Buckets. The Milwaukee Bucks, I want to give a shout out to Drew Holiday and Brook Lopez, who are both having amazing career years in the absence of Chris Middleton for a large chunk of the season, and with the limited minutes that he's been playing off the bench. Those two have really stepped up and have helped anchor this really top defense and the top best team in the NBA at the moment. So nothing new. The Bucks are good. Giannis is there, but Drew and Brook deserve some credit there too. The Minnesota Timberwolves, the young wing duo of Anthony Edwards and Jaden McDaniels, is going to be so fun to watch for so long. They are a dynamic defensive duo, and it's really fun to watch them play on both ends of the ball because Jaden McDaniels is starting to learn to put the ball on the floor and attack for himself. Anthony Edwards, obviously, his offensive game is just growing as a whole. He's getting more polished. He's, finishing off those finishes and hitting those step backs. It's all very fun to watch, I must say. You should probably watch more Timberwolves games. The New Orleans Pelicans, dealing with the injuries of Brandon Ingram for a large chunk of the year, and then to Zion Williamson, who is still in the process of recovering, which that's a whole other thing. But for the Pelicans, this one was a little bit harder for me to pick, but I did end up going with Trey Murphy for the flowers that I want to give. He just came off a career game, 32 points with 10 made three-pointers, which was insane to think about. I'm upset that I missed that game, but I was doing something else. He's been having a pretty good year, 14 points on 48, 41 splits. Like, it's not really much else you can ask for from that guy right now. He's been pretty damn good. The New York Knicks, I want to talk about Emmanuel Quickley, Quentin Grimes, and Josh Hart, who I think are tremendous role players and have been a very key part of why the Knicks have been so good this season. I know Josh Hart was here in the latter half of the season, obviously getting traded at the trade deadline, the newest addition of these three, but, Quentin Grimes is a defensive monster, and, next to Emmanuel Quickley, who is also a defensive monster, it's fun, because they both have an offensive game as well. Emmanuel Quickley is one of the quickest players in the league. His floater game is really good. His offensive game is nice. It's coming around. He's been having some pretty good performances. I think he just had, a 25 and 10 game. I think the 10 was rebounds. So just an exciting trio of role players that have helped the Knicks succeed, and I love seeing that. Oklahoma City Thunder, I'm going to give a huge shout out to J-Dub, who has taken over the second spot in the Rookie of the Year race above Walker Kessler. He's been phenomenal, a really, really good finisher at the rim, and someone who the Thunder should be holding on to for a very long time because he is key to this core. The ability to play at the four, even though it is probably not the position he should be playing, but the ability to slot in there, play alongside the other Jalen Williams, and just be able to be what that team needs with Shea and Josh Giddey handling the ball a lot. You kind of just have to fit in where you get in. He's been doing just that and excelling in that. So shout out to J-Dub for that. The Orlando Magic, they have been very competitive during a tanking season. I think they are at 30 wins right now, which is, for a team that's, supposed to be getting a pretty sizable, chunky draft pick, they're at 31 and 43. And Paolo has been having an incredible rookie season. So I just want to give my flowers to the entire organization, the entire team, because despite your expectations, you've been very competitive. You own the Celtics, basically, which is incredible. You've given the Nuggets pretty hard matchups as well. So shout out to the Magic, man. The Philadelphia 76ers, the natural arch rival to Nuggets media and fan base, they look like a team that could finally make the Eastern Conference Finals. I think Joel Embiid and James Harden are clicking on a level that they envisioned when they made that trade for James Harden. And Tyrese Maxey, again, he came back from injury. He looks pretty good lately. Tobias Harris was slotting into his role for a large chunk of the season. They traded for Jalen McDaniels, and, he's not getting as much run and not showing as much, but they've got a lot of talent on that roster. roster. And I think it's going to show out a lot in the playoffs. They do have to unfortunately go through either the Celtics or the Bucks. I would give them some sort of bet against the Celtics for sure. And also one more shout out for the Sixers. B-Ball Paul is finally getting minutes as a backup, which should have been happening. So shout out to y'all for doing the right thing. For the Phoenix Suns, I want to give these flowers to Josh Okogie, who I just tweeted about yesterday. I was like, I want Josh Okogie on the Nuggets because he plays so hard as a multi-position defender. He is someone who can lock up your best player. We've seen it several times, not just this year, but against James Harden last year and the year before that. Josh Okogie is a really good defender, and he is someone who is really high energy and someone who can get to the spot on defense wherever you need him to be, and I've been very impressed with that. For the Portland Trailblazers, I want to give this to Shaedon Sharpe. I pretty much had zero expectations for Shaedon coming into the draft. I didn't really follow him before the NBA, and I just had no thoughts about him. I saw his high-flying moments. I was like, okay, that guy's cool, whatever. But he has been pretty impressive as a scorer, as a vertical threat in the transition. Like, he gets up pretty damn high. And it's very fun to watch, honestly. The Sacramento Kings. I have made 2 separate videos about this team, and rightfully so. I think they are the most fun team in the NBA, and I think they are the best storyline to come out of this season. A team that is fighting for the 2nd seed in the West after not making the playoffs for 17 years? That's pretty damn good. Sabonis has been amazing. De'Aaron Fox has been amazing. All the role players are fitting around Sabonis and Fox very, very well. My flowers go to the entire organization for changing the image that everyone sees when they look at the Sacramento Kings. You look like a real playoff team now, and I'm really happy about that. The San Antonio Spurs, Jeremy Sohan, pretty much the only person I like on that team at the moment. I really don't care about the Spurs. The Toronto Raptors, they are very stubborn. They refuse to make a big play / blow it up. And at this point, I have to commend them for sticking to the grind and trying to be an average team and make some noise as an 8th seed. So kudos to y'all, man. I don't know what direction y'all going in, but have fun with it. For the Utah Jazz, a team that was very exciting to start the season, ended up coming down to earth, but Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler certainly did not. In fact, both of them have been getting better as the season has gone on, and now the Utah Jazz have a dynamic duo to look at the very start of their rebuild. They didn't have to wait for the first draft. They didn't have to wait for the first free agency period to try and get some guys here. They already have a duo that is going to be very, very productive together for a very long time if they chose to stay. And last but not least, the Washington Wizards. I want to give my flowers to Kristaps Porzingis, who is having an incredible season. I think a season that needs to be talked about just a little bit more because, it's hard to do that with the Wizards being so bad and, embracing mediocrity and such. But Porzingis right now, 23-8 on 49-38 splits is pretty damn impressive. And considering all the stigma around him since the start of his career and his time with the Mavericks and yada yada, like, it's nice to see him having a good, stable year for the Wizards, for a team in general. And that'll do it for today's video, man. It's pretty straightforward. I know this one's going to be a little bit of a long one, but I hope you appreciate that just a little bit. There will be timestamps, of course, so you can go straight to your team. You can go to the teams that you really want to hear. That being said, thank you very much for watching. I will talk to y'all later. Peace out.